Welcome back, everybody, to the New York Knicks, my NBA franchise here on NBA 2K23. In the last episode, our Knicks won the NBA Finals, defeating the Rockets 108-104 in the sixth game. It ended up being a really exciting matchup, and fittingly, we won off of a fourth quarter comeback and a postseason run that has featured a lot of comebacks from us. This game ended up being really good. The series ended up being super competitive as a whole. Jason Tatum with a legacy game, 26-9. Cesar DiCarlo was phenomenal, 24-10. And those two guys were really able to be the stars while everybody else played their role. Zachariah Royster, of all people, ended up winning the Finals MVP. You'd think a 21-year-old who was a backup for most of the year wouldn't win the Finals MVP, but he had a legitimately good series. He was very efficient in all 6 games. He played good defense. He grabbed 2 double-doubles and was really close in every other game. So that's how our playoff run comes to an end. A 21-year-old backup who collapsed his lung not even a month ago wins the Finals MVP. And we won this championship while being consistently banged up. Jarrett Allen and Ochai Agbaji did not play a single playoff game, while everybody else in our front court got injured at some point in the postseason. Reddish with his wrist, Tatum hurt his knee, Royster obviously had the collapsed lung, and Buddy Johnson hurt his elbow. But this team does not make excuses. We still found a way to get the job done. So that kind of poses the question of what is next. And at the end of the last episode, I told you guys that I was very undecided on what I wanted to do, because the plan was always to do 6 seasons within the series, but this year's playoff run took quite a while. Madden obviously comes out in a little over a week. I'm going to be very focused on that. And getting through another season isn't realistic with 2K coming out in around a month or so. So what we're going to do is we're not going to jump into the long-term sim right away. You guys talked me into doing a Season 6, but we're going to move really fast. We will get Season 6 done in 3 episodes. The off-season, the regular season, and the playoffs will all get their own individual episodes, and today we'll be going through the entire off-season of not just the Knicks, but also the Minnesota Timberwolves. Don't forget, we've been working with them. We're going to spend more time than ever with Minnesota here over these next few episodes, and hopefully get a Knicks and T-Wolves finals this season. Starting with retirements, Steven Adams retires as an NBA champ with the Knicks. Other than that, this was a really weak class of retirements. No Hall of Famers, no jersey retirements. I don't know if any of those guys have All-Stars, let alone Hall of Fame talk. Here are your staff retirements. As for your league meetings, I do have one big rule that I'm going to change. Towards the end of all of my 2K series, I like to decrease the shot clock. It gets stats up, so I figured, why not? Let's hop into the NBA draft lottery, and our Knicks do own a lottery pick projected at 16 via the Indiana Pacers. Will the Knicks move up? No, we do not. The draft lottery ended up being rather boring. There were not any changes through the 6th pick, which is a major surprise as it has been all chalk up to this point. You got to assume there's going to be some sort of movement here at 5, and sure enough, it's the Dallas Mavericks who get screwed over. They will drop to 5, and the Raptors will move into the top 4. Number 4 will go to the Houston Rockets. Yes, the Rockets have a top 4 pick after making the finals. They're going to add another really good young piece to their core. The 3rd pick will go to the Toronto Raptors, who, as we also know, we had a big battle with them in the playoffs going 7 games. They get to add another piece to their core. The 2nd pick will go to the Milwaukee Bucks, and for the 2nd time in 3 years, the Miami Heat will be picking number 1 overall. 2 years ago, they drafted Zachary Archibald, the big man out of Alabama, and he's gotten off to a pretty good start in his career. The problem is the team has been so irrelevant and bad that Archibald hasn't really put his name on the map yet, but having a new number 1 pick teammate will certainly help him out. It's been a while since we talked about the draft class, really about a month and a half. So a lot of these names you guys may not remember, but this is what the class looks like currently. If you want to go back to the prospect profiles that we did, I recommend you check those out in the series playlist if you want to try to refresh your memory on some of these prospects. It's a really deep group. I think this class is a little bit weaker at the top than what we've seen recently, but it's a deep group as we get into the teens and the 20s, which is good for the Knicks and the Timberwolves because both of us have 2 first-round picks. Emery Shabazz from IMG Academy seems to be the favorite to go number 1. They had the Timberwolves adding point guard Darius Thompson-Roberts, Edor Rice to the Timberwolves, Tommy Egobalus to the Knicks, and then Luis Mata to Minnesota. The top of the 2K mock draft is the same, at least in the top 3, with Shabazz, Darion Skies, and Alistar Gates being the top 3 picks. They have the Knicks getting Bamidele Oladipo, along with the Timberwolves getting DJ Johnson. The Knicks get Keyshawn Chancellor, and then Edor Rice again goes to Minnesota. Again, the top 3 is the exact same. I feel like this isn't really a clear top 3, but the mock drafts seem to disagree with me there. The Knicks get big man Trey McDuffie. The Timberwolves pick Octavius Gamius. Minnesota also gets Edor Rice again, while the Knicks would pick Bryce Maximilian. Here's a look at the leaders through the NBA Draft Combine. Milos Jovic was super impressive. He's a guy who could be a candidate for the Knicks or Timberwolves selections. Tegan Crouch is a name I would watch out for. He had a very good run as well. Darion Skies, projected 2nd overall pick, shot the ball really well. Not really a surprise there. So now it's time for pre-draft workouts. For the Knicks, I really just tried to focus on players who I think could fall to either 16 or 25. So these are the 12 players who we will be extending invites to. As for Minnesota, I looked at some guys at the top. I wouldn't mind being aggressive with Minnesota, maybe trying to trade up, add that 3rd star with Coco Diablo and Apollo Thanopoulos. I invited some of the same players for both teams to see if the results were different or not. And I think there are some guys who would make sense for both teams. So let's take a look at the results here. Milos Jovic was unbelievable in his Knicks pre-draft workout. He led with the sprint time, the lane time, and had the tied for highest vertical leap. As for the shooting drills, Milos Jovic performed very well again here, as did big man Maximum Grand from James Madison University. Octavius Gamius and Gennaro Jetson led in terms of three-point shooting. With Minnesota, Darius Dumoulin from Alabama State was the guy who really stole the show over Milos Jovic, who also had a workout here with the Timberwolves. Alejandro Belmonte, a big man from Spain, was a really pleasant surprise in the shooting drills as well. So with that, we can now officially hop into the draft. The Knicks, of course, have 16 and 25, while the Timberwolves have 23, 27, and the 16th pick within the 2nd round. So let's hop into it. The 2027 NBA draft is on the clock. The number 1 pick belongs to the Miami Heat. With the first pick, the Miami Heat select Florentino Mandrian from Florida Atlantic. I said I don't think there's a clear top 3 here, and the mock drafts are in fact wrong. A major surprise with the top pick, as Mandrian is going to Miami. So the Bucks are like, yeah, this sounds pretty good. Let's get Emery Shabazz, who is the consensus best player in the draft, while the Raptors get Darion Skies, who's the consensus 2nd best player in the draft. And then the Rockets will get Alistar Gates, who is the 3rd consensus player in the draft. So teams 2 through 4 are quite happy with Miami's top pick. Dallas got really screwed over because they missed out on the top 3 guys. They're going to get Gundai Wibawa from North Carolina. His brother is a restricted free agent this year. Artemis Kolomak goes to the Nuggets. I did not think he would go this high, but they do like their European bigs. DJ Johnson out of North Texas at 7. I thought he would go in like the 20s or 30s. What is Cleveland trying to cook? Tegan Crouch goes to Memphis. That's a really good pick. I was hoping he would fall a little bit farther for the Knicks, but unfortunately that's not the case. Keyshawn Chancellor goes at 9, another surprise. And that brings us to the 10th pick. The Clippers are on the clock, but with some of the better prospects starting to fall a little bit, the Minnesota Timberwolves are on the phone. They're trying to get a deal done. We're going to start by offering the 23rd pick and Splash Mayo. He's on kind of a big deal. I'm willing to give him up. This is basically the trade package that we got for Cat. Then the Clippers are going to say no, so I'm going to be willing to add the 27th pick here. I think it's worth it to get the guy I'm targeting. They say no. The only other player we could trade is Apollo Thanopoulos. Obviously, that's not going to happen. So I'm going to add 2 second-round picks to hoping that sweetens things up. They say no. I'm not willing to go any further. We're going to let the Clippers keep this pick as they select Gennaro Jetson. He wasn't the guy I was targeting, but I do really like him. I think this is a pretty good pick for the Clippers, a teammate of the 2nd overall pick, Emery Shabazz. So we're going to try to do the same thing here with the 11th pick with San Antonio. I would be willing to offer the same deal that we offer the Clippers. They said no. So who are the Spurs targeting here? The answer is nobody. They are trading this pick to the Phoenix Suns for Ben Simmons. Wow, that's interesting. I think this deal makes a lot of sense for both teams. So Spurs are trying to add NBA-ready role players, while the Suns traded Kevin Durant and Devin Booker last year. Now they trade away their final veteran piece for a lottery pick. and they select Calvin Banks to second. That was the guy who we were going after with Minnesota. I think he's a top 5 player in this draft. He had no business falling here to the 11th pick. I was hoping Minnesota would be able to strike a deal to move up and get him, but unfortunately that's not the case. So now I think both the Knicks and the Timberwolves are going to stay put. Edor Rice goes at 12. He was projected to the Timberwolves in every mock draft. Instead, he goes way earlier. So with the Cavs' 2 lottery picks, they picked 2 players projected in the 20s. Nice. Zayden Montero out of Indiana goes to the Clippers. The Celtics get Bamidele Oladipo from Senegal. He had a knee issue that our scouts, as in the Knicks scouts, discovered at the Combine. Apparently, a lot of other scouting departments found that as well. And then Darius Thompson-Roberts goes to the Magic. So that'll bring the Knicks up here with the 16th pick. I decided to, before looking at some players to pick, which there are some good players on the board here, we are going to look at potentially trading this pick as well for good value. I'm more than confident with about 5 or 6 players available, so if we don't find a trade we like, it's cool. But there were actually some really intriguing trade offers in here. A lot of these deals I like quite a bit. Dominic Cherry, former Knick, he's actually turned out quite well with the Hawks. Good for him. But the deal that really intrigued me was this one for Keegan Murray with Sacramento. If you remember, we had the Knicks try to sign Keegan Murray last offseason. I think he would have been a great fit with this team, and I still think that's the case. However, I would rather keep this 16th pick and maybe try to get Keegan Murray some other way. So we're going to hold on to this pick, but I'm still going to look to try to trade for Keegan Murray because I think he'd be such a perfect fit here, and I'm going to try to do it without giving up this 16th pick because I think there's a lot of really good prospects on the board. In terms of players we can trade, we only have 3 guys under contract. So Jason Tatum's obviously not going anywhere. Jared Allen I'm not counting because we cannot trade him because he's hurt. Buddy Johnson I don't want to move. So that kind of leaves Isu Odu. We drafted him in the first round last year. I do like him, but he doesn't really have a clear role here. I'd be willing to package him and the 25th pick for Keegan Murray. They say no. They offer as a counter 2 additional ones for Walker Kessler, who would also be a good fit. We need size. But this is basically 4 first-round picks. I don't think I'd be willing to do that for Keegan Murray and Walker Kessler, so we're going to hang tight here with the 16th pick. I think there's like 5 or 6 players who are very equal in talent here, so because of that, I want to look at the 3 best fits. We need bigs really badly. So the first player we're going to look at is Maximus Grand. He's a traditional big, back to the basket, good defense. The second one is Cristi Dalsa. He is from Romania. He's more of a stretch big, not as good defensively, but he can score the ball from every level of the floor. And then the last one is kind of the wild card of the group. It's Vidal Imani Sparks. Not a great scorer, but he's a super versatile defender. He's not really a true big, but I think he's a really intriguing player. So it's going to be one of those 3 bigs with the 16th pick. Who's it going to be? With the 16th pick in the 2027 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select Vidal Imani Sparks from Baton Rouge High School in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So Sparks will be the pick. I know he's not a traditional big man, but I think he's intriguing enough as a prospect to where I can't really pass him up. He's from a small school in Baton Rouge. I did a little bit of research on said school. Turns out Bob Pettit went there, so that's kind of cool. Sparks comes in as a 75 overall. He's not going to score the ball a whole lot early on. He doesn't really provide much as a shooter, but he's a really good playmaker for his size. He's a phenomenal athlete, and he's a really versatile defender. Put him on the perimeter, put him down low, he can produce. His stock has skyrocketed this year well enough to make him a 5-star recruit going to the McDonald's All-American game. He originally had committed to the University of Oregon. However, he has decided to obviously stay in the draft where we're going to scoop him up. Seth Randolph is the 17th pick. He'll go to the Kings. Randolph, going into the draft, flew up boards. He was projected in the top 10. That proves to be smoke. He ends up here at 17. Milos Jovic to Toronto. The Raptors are having a great draft. That's a really good pick for them. Maximus Grand goes to the Blazers. He was a guy who we had liked. We ultimately passed on him for Sparks. He'll end up in Portland. Gavin Dillon out of the University of Miami of Ohio goes to the Hawks. Angelos Caballero to the Warriors. That's a pretty good pick. He was projected to be a lottery selection. The Suns get Owen Syndergaard from West Virginia. Similar to Seth Randolph, he was really flying up boards late. That proved to be smoke. He ends up going in the 20s. So the Timberwolves are on the board here at 23, and again, there are still some good players available. I put this pick in the trade finder, and I think it's glitched because a lot of these are literally the same offers we got with the Knicks for the 16th pick. Like, no way the Kings would trade 23 for Keegan Murray. That doesn't really make sense for them. So we're going to hold on to this pick. There are some guys who I still really like who are available. With the 23rd pick in the 2027 NBA Draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Jonathan Washburn out of the University of Florida. Washburn is a lottery talent in my opinion, and for him to fall here is really good value. I really like his skill set. He can drive to the basket, score inside. He's an inconsistent shooter, but he's an improving playmaker, good defensive player, and good athlete. I think he's the modern-day NBA wing, and with guys like Lou Dort and Jaden McDaniels and Patrick Feinstein all not under contract next year for Minnesota, they're likely going to need to replace some production on the wing, and I think the athleticism and versatility that Jonathan Washburn brings to the table would be a really good fit for the Timberwolves. Both the Knicks and the Timberwolves are almost up again here, as the Oklahoma City Thunder will be trading the 24th pick to the Miami Heat for Herb Jones and Yusuf Nurkic. So OKC adds some role players while the Heat get another pick. They select big man Jeremiah Mans Toxic. So that'll bring the Knicks up for their second first-round pick of the day. We have 23 trade offers for the pick, and again, I checked, all of them were pretty much the same trade offers that we've been getting earlier, which again, I don't think would really be realistic. I think this pick comes to either Chris Mankis or Kristi Dalsa. Mankis is a spark plug scorer off the bench. Dalsa, we already talked about him. He'd be a good fit as a stretch big. With the 25th pick in the 2027 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select Chris Mankis out of the University of Miami. I get that Dalsa really fits a need, but I think Mankis does too. With Damian Lillard not under contract next year, we need a replacement as a backup point guard, and Mankis coming in as a 77 overall will be exactly that. Mankis is a gifted scorer. He can shoot, he can drive to the basket, he's a great playmaker. He is a gifted offensive player. I think he's one of the 5 best offensive prospects in this year's draft. I see a little bit of Coco Diablo in his game offensively. He's not anywhere near the defender that Diablo is. Defense is a real weakness for him, but he could be a spark plug off the bench. I think him and Dumbu as the backcourt leading the second unit sounds pretty good to me. Melly Murray is the 26th pick. The other Miami guard ends up in Dallas. And then the Timberwolves are on the clock for their second first-round pick of the day. I think this selection really comes down to 2 bigs. Kristi Dalsa, again, or Alejandro Belmonte. In terms of scoring, the edge goes to Dalsa. Belmonte gets the edge with defense. Belmonte gets the edge with athleticism. Dalsa gets the edge with playmaking. So it's pretty even between the two. With the 27th pick in the 2027 NBA Draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Kristi Dalsa from Romania. I really like his ability as a scorer. I get the defense isn't dominant per se, but Apollo-Thanopoulos was literally a Defensive Player of the Year candidate last year, so I think he will be able to mask up the issues that Dalsa has defensively, coming in as a 74 overall. With Ahmed Kabongo as a free agent as well, the Timberwolves are going to be looking for some more size. Dalsa doesn't have the most fluid of shooting motions, but the shot goes in. He's a good playmaker at his size, solid rebounder. It's just the defense that really has to be worked on. But again, with Apollo-Thanopoulos here, I think he'll be able to mask up some of those issues. Let's wrap up the rest of the first round now. The Memphis Grizzlies will be acquiring Rudy Gobert from the Boston Celtics for the 28th pick, and Boston will select Tommy Elagabalus, a big man from Italy. Xavier Carter from Duke goes to the Suns. The Sonics get Luis Matza out of Syracuse. The 76ers get Alejandro Belmonte. He doesn't have to wait too much longer to hear his name called. And then the Atlanta Hawks select Octavius Ganius out of Kansas. Folks, I've been drafted. I'm an Atlanta Hawk. So that'll wrap up the first round at the draft. Here's a look at your ratings. The highest rated players in the draft were 78, being Emery Shabazz and Alistar Gates. So the fact that the Knicks got a 77 overall with the 25th pick is really impressive, with the top of this draft being weaker, but it is a really deep group. Sparks is a 75, while Minnesota's 2 picks, Washburn is a 75, and Dalsa is a 74. So I think both teams made out quite well. Let's simulate to Minnesota's selection here in the second round, the 48th overall pick. None of one who we invited to pre-draft workouts are left, but there are still some decent prospects left on the board. With the 48th pick in the 2027 NBA Draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select R.J. Gates out of Baylor. Gates is a lockdown defender. Lou Dort is probably gone, so maybe Gates can be the long-term replacement. He's got some work to do as a shooter, but he can score from inside and from the mid-range, so I'm confident he'll be able to improve the three ball. He's not a bad playmaker, fine athlete. I think he's a solid pick for the second round. Let's take a look at the rest of round 2. Rocco Royster, the brother of Zachariah Royster, ends up going to the Los Angeles Lakers. We have a 75 overall Bryce Maximilian, only one rating lower than the number 1 pick. Got some 60s in here as well, but overall it was a really deep group of players despite the top of this class not being good. And I think both the Knicks and the Timberwolves made out quite well with this draft, getting some really good players. Let's move on to free agency now and what is expected to be a loaded 2027 free agency class. The big storyline here right off the bat is Anthony Edwards' $43+ million player option. Does he accept it and stay for another year, or will he decline? And unsurprisingly, Anthony Edwards will decline his player option. He will officially be hitting the open market. This is sort of what we expected. We knew when we were getting him last offseason that it was a one-year thing. Obviously, we may very well look to re-sign him, but we knew it was super likely that he'd be hitting the open market this upcoming offseason. The 3 team options are going to be accepted, and then for Minnesota, we're going to accept all the options as well. The team options were all pretty easy. Along with Anthony Edwards, Joel Embiid and Jaylen Brown also declined their player options. Will be entering free agency. Other than the 3 of them, there weren't really many notable players with player options. It was just a lot of young guys on team options, which most of these around the league were obviously accepted. Now we will move over to the qualifying offer stage. Before that, I want to go over everybody who's a free agent for these teams. The Knicks have 2 big ones. Anthony Edwards entering unrestricted free agency and Cesar DiCarlo entering restricted free agency. Role players off the books include Damian Lillard, Cam Reddish, and Ochai Agbaji, along with some other guys including Kyle Anderson and David Oyedeji. As for Minnesota, they've got a number of big names too, including Markelle Fultz, Ahmed Kabongo will be restricted, Jaden McDaniels, Patrick Feinstein, Luguentz Dort. So that's 5 key rotation players right off the bat here for Minnesota, along with Jackson Watkins, Cam Amon, Alexander Killebrew, and Shamari Porter. A number of these younger guys for both teams are restricted and have qualifying offers. Obviously, Cesar DiCarlo is the big one for the Knicks, with Patrick Feinstein and Ahmed Kabongo being the main 2 for Minnesota. With that, let's hop into free agency. And as you guys can see, this is a really good group. Luka, Shea, Ant, who has 9 offers, tied with Cat for the most. Embiid, Booker, Curry, Cat, Jaylen Brown, Trae Young, Kristaps Porzingis, etc. We will start with the Knicks here, and I think the main focus is going to be bringing the guys back who we already have. We have negative $166 million in cap space, although a lot of that is because of cap holds we already have. If we let go of all of our cap holds, we could hypothetically sign a max player. Now, that seems pretty foolish considering we have bird rights for a max player and another really good player. So I think it's in our best interest to look to re-sign Anthony Edwards and Cesar DiCarlo to extensions. Anthony Edwards was a little bit inconsistent last year, especially in the playoffs, but the fact of the matter is he is a really good player, and I think we would be pretty stupid to ultimately let him go. So we're going to look to offer him a big chunk of change. Currently, the Pacers and the Mavericks seem interested. I don't know why he'd rather go there than here, so we're going to give him a 5-year Supermax extension. As for Cesar DiCarlo, another guy who's been plagued by inconsistencies and injuries throughout his career. This past season, he only missed 15 games. The year before, he only missed 8 games. So he's done a much better job of staying healthy. And while half of our roster got hurt in the playoffs, he did not. He played in every game this postseason. He was inconsistent throughout the playoffs, but he had some really good moments, specifically Game 6 of the NBA Finals, where he dropped 24 and 10. We're going to give him a 5-year deal for around $110 million. And then the last player we're going to offer here in Stage 1 is Cam Reddish. He's an important role player, a 3-and-D guy who can shoot the ball off the catch. And during the playoffs, he played really good defense along the interior. As for Minnesota, with our 3 offers, we're going to look to bring some guys back, but we're also going to be more aggressive through the rest of free agency. Not that the Timberwolves are really superstar hunting, but if we clear out some money, we could sign another big-name player. I was looking for younger guys who are a little bit more under the radar, who we could maybe overpay a little bit, like Jamison Zander. He's been with the Washington Wizards over the last 4 years, and he's been a good player, averaging around 25 and 5. there are some concerns about him. He's a questionable defender. He's also not efficient at all as a scorer, with under 40% from the field, but I think that can be fixed. He hasn't really had a clear role on the Wizards, and because of that, he's been a bench player for most of his career. He actually won the Sixth Man of the Year in his second season. In his third season, he made the All-Star team while being a primary bench player somehow. And then this year, he was quite solid as well. But the Wizards are loaded up on the wing. Malik Porter and Amani Juno are natural wings. They also have Kevin Durant, of course, as well. So we're going to give him a 4-year deal for a little over $100 million. We're overpaying a little bit, so the Wizards hopefully don't match. I'd like to bring back Markelle Fultz. I think him being in the backcourt along with Coco Diablo is a pretty good fit. And then Patrick Feinstein is super cheap, so we're going to look to extend him. All 6 players ended up accepting. Edwards, Reddish, and DiCarlo are all back with the Knicks. We do have to renounce the rights on Damian Lillard, though, along with Ochai Agbaji, but I think it is worth it to bring these guys back. And then Jamison Xander, Markelle Fultz, and Patrick Feinstein all accept with the T-Wolves. The question is, will Xander's contract be matched by the Wizards? And sure enough, drum roll please, it would, well, we have to renounce Jaden McDaniels first, along with Luguentz Dort, which kind of sucks. But Jamison Xander's contract would not be matched. So he is now a Minnesota Timberwolf. That's really exciting. There isn't really a whole lot else I would like to do with these two teams. I do want some more depth down low for the Knicks. I think Banyu Wibawa would be a good fit. He was part of the Devin Booker trade package from Detroit to Phoenix, a former top 10 draft pick who hasn't really worked out, but I still think there is some untapped talent left, and I think he could be good depth for us. We're going to look to give him a 3-year deal for close to $30 million. As for Minnesota, I do want to bring back Jaden McDaniels. We had to renounce his rights, but we still have his bird rights, apparently. So we're going to give him a 3-year extension. Both Banyu Wibawa and Jaden McDaniels would accept their deals, but unfortunately the Suns matched the offer sheet for Banyu Wibawa. So the Knicks are going to have to pivot with a backup big potentially, and I decided to go to a familiar friend. We're going to offer Ahmed Kabongo from the Timberwolves. He was with Minnesota for 1 year. I think he'd be a good fit to bring back. He is exactly what we're looking for, and I don't think Minnesota would look to match him for this price. The Timberwolves don't really need him. Kabongo would accept the deal, and I guess I had the offer to choose whether to match it or not. I wasn't really planning on having the Timberwolves bring him back, so I think we're going to let him walk, and he'll end up signing with the Knicks, although there is one problem. Unfortunately, the Knicks would not have enough money to sign him. So, I guess that's all for naught. But luckily, everybody else is now officially on their respective teams. After that, I went out and signed some depth players for both teams to try to fill up the end of the rosters, but I didn't really do anything too crazy. Let's take a look at the free agency results, and there are some surprising moves in here. Luka Doncic is a Portland Trailblazer, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a Golden State Warrior. Those are both really surprising. Both of those guys were on good teams, Luka with the Sixers, Shai with OKC, and they both leave for not-so-good teams, which is a little bit peculiar. Anthony Edwards is the only really good player of this group who stayed with their respective teams. Replacing Luka on the Sixers will be Stephen Curry. So the Warriors are just trying to go out with the old, in with the new. That's why they're letting Curry go. They're getting someone who's younger and better with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They're starting fresh. The Lakers brought back Joel Embiid, and they stole Jaylen Brown from the 76ers. The Lakers now the big three of Giannis, Embiid, and Jaylen Brown. As for the Sixers, they sold their soul last year at the trade deadline for Luka and Jaylen Brown, and both players are gone after their first-round exit. They did sign Steph Curry and Levi Beauregard, but I would not be happy if I was a Sixers fan. Devin Booker leaves Detroit. That's a surprise. He signs with the Pacers, joining a talented young core led by Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, and Alfie Kohn. Karl Anthony Towns signs with the Sacramento Kings, replacing Kristaps Porzingis, who goes to Seattle. Walter Knotts III leaves OKC for Orlando. I would be pissed if I was a Thunder fan. Yeah, they've got a nice big three with DeJounte, Chet, and Adeyemi Onuaku, but with those 17 first-round picks, for this to be how it ends up, I would not like that at all. Letting Shai and Knotts go for nothing feels like a major blow. We talked about Levi, of course. He's now with the Sixers. RJ Barrett re-ups with New Orleans. Andrew Wiggins to the Hawks. Ches Regenworth signs with Golden State. I love what the Warriors have done this offseason. They've completely revamped their team with Shai, Regenworth, and the Cum Bucket leading the way. They've got the trade pieces from the Jordan Poole trade with Kenny Cooks and Ref Obiampo. They've drafted well recently with Vincent Cherrytree last year and Angelos Caballero this year. The Warriors have been bad for quite a while, but I think they really could be turning things around. As for the Nets, they lose key role players with Regenworth and Beauregard. Regenworth, I think, is the really big loss of the two. Milton Surratt signs with the Hawks. Zymer Donaldson signs with the Bucks. He might average 40 a game this year with Milwaukee. And other than that, there wasn't anything super notable. Bradley Beal to the Sixers is kind of interesting, I guess. But other than that, nothing too notable. There's Ahmed Kabongo. He signs with Miami Heat. I don't really like that fit for him because they already have Zachary Archibald at the 5, so Kabongo's just going to have the same role. I figured if he wasn't with us or Minnesota, he could start somewhere. But I guess that will, unfortunately for him, not be the case. All right, let's move on past free agency to player progression. The other players for the qualifying offer except for both teams. Let's take a look at how everybody is progressed. We will start with the New York Knicks, and by far the biggest riser ended up being Buddy Johnson, who is the 4th highest rated player on the team as an 80 overall. Looks like he's going to have a bigger role this year. That's a big jump for him. One of the other surprises was DJ Ramses. He only went up 1. I've seen a lot of comments saying I should move Ramses' rating up because of how he plays, and I get it. He plays a lot better than an 80 overall, but I also don't really want to cheat the game. Some players just don't really progress after they hit a peak at an early age. If Ramses consistently averages around 20 and 7 through the rest of his career, I'll be good with that, even if he's only an 80 overall. We didn't really have anybody regress. Cam Reddish is still getting better. I saw a +3 for Isu Odu. That's really good. As for Minnesota, Coco Diablo goes up by 3. That's great. I think Coco Diablo is a lot more equipped to be the star of the team than DJ Ramses. I think it worked out for both DJ and Coco that we kept DJ and traded Coco, because this way Coco can be the man in Minnesota and DJ can really prioritize his role as a complementary scorer behind Tatum and Edwards. Apollo Thanopoulos only going up 2 does kind of suck, though. I was hoping for like a 4 or 5 point boost from him, but unfortunately that will not be the case. In Summer League, both teams were kind of disappointing. The Knicks ended up losing in the first round despite a good game and a good overall Summer League from Buddy Johnson. As for the Timberwolves, they ended up losing in the second round with nobody scoring more than 11 in the final game. The Knicks went 1-4 through Summer League, and the Timberwolves went 2-3. Looking at some standouts, Chris Mankis, the rookie, was quite good. Isu Odu, 14-6-4. I love to see it. Zachariah Royster played. He didn't even play all that well. This guy just won the Finals MVP. Why are we playing him in Summer League? Buddy Johnson was great, around 19-9. Again, I'm expecting a major leap from him. The Dalimani Sparks, the other first-round rookie, was quite good. He averaged around 10-7-4. As for the Timberwolves, our 2 top picks shot the ball horribly. Jonathan Washburn, 36%. Christy Dulsa, 32% as a big. That is totally unacceptable. Knum Amon ended up being the leading scorer. Maybe he challenges for more playing time this year. Good to see him producing. And with that, we will now simulate into the regular season with the All-Star City being in Miami. And we will now officially be using auto-generated classes going forward for the rest of the series, since this was the last draft before the long-term sim. So custom players for the next series are officially closed. We have now made it into the regular season. I wanted to see when these two teams would play against each other, and funny enough, they play against each other within the span of about 3 days, on December 8th and December 11th. So what the plan is, next episode, we're going to go through the entire regular season. We're going to do a lot of simming. We're going to play either 1 or 2 games, which would be the Knicks versus the Timberwolves. I haven't decided if I'm going to play 1 or both. I would have preferred if they were like 3 months apart rather than 3 days, but oh well, it's fine. That'll wrap up the episode. Let me know what you thought of the formatting of what Season 6 of the series is going to look like. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.